Ah, now the truth comes out. So how the video get recorded? What about that?
Only reason that one was recorded because I was on Xanax. Like, I don't find no reason to record a fight. Like, who am I to have to prove that I could beat somebody's ass?
Yeah, but the video showed you getting slung like bootleg movies at a corner store.
Just, y'all don't know shit. Like I said, like plenty of times, y'all don't know your ass from your fucking elbow.
But you got slung on your ass, head, and your elbow. How about that?
Learn your fucking facts before you want to talk shit.
Well, we finna play the video clip. How about that? Roll it.
Put your phone down. Like G shit, like I swear to God. I just like fully watched that video and that's not even the full fight.
Damn, so that ass whooping went longer that?
It's like the last part where them shits really started to, like them Zans really started to get to me.
Well, I guess we'll never see this beginning, but you need to change your name from Cash Me Outside to Drag Me Outside. How about that?
I know I got dragged. Apparently, y'all don't know the difference between drag and dog walk. Cause bitch, she drags bitches. I dog walk bitches.
Yeah, she might have drugged you in the beginning, but towards that end, you look like a disobedient poodle on the ground. You got dog walked.
Okay, Ian.
She said, K-N.
Yeah, what's good? Yeah, you want to sign with Hater Make NT? Let me see what you got.
Oh my God, this motherfucker right.
Hey, there's something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Blockbuster. Hey,
Yeah, I don't know about calling them, but I know who I am finna call. Security!
I'm feeling good from my head to my shoes. I know I'm going and I know what to do. I thought it up my point of view. I got a new attitude.
Did she put the auditioning microphone in her bikini? I hope she put the auditioning microphone in her bikini.
You can ring my bell. You can ring my bell. Ring it. Ring it. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Ow.
Yeah, well, that answers that question.
Mother, Captain Kangaroo, your mind. Captain Kangaroo, your motherfucking ass.
Hey, I promote hip-hop, not dick hop.
Look, keep on playing with me, dick. I'm tired of you. Sick and tired of your ass. Bitch.
What is that? Oh my gosh. What the f...
How y'all doing, cutie? I'd like to take this time and welcome you to the Hater Maker Show. So, looks-wise, what kind of man would you say you was interested in?
Looks-wise?
Looks-wise. What are you attracted to?
I don't know. Nah, you gotta be taller than me. You ain't gotta just be no giant motherfucker. But you can't be shorter than me. If you shorter than me, then...
So what ethnicity are you attracted to?
Oh my God.
Of course you get, I don't know, fat.
So Snoop Doggy, Cat Lion, Bird Squirrel, and Twitter Fingers himself, Donald Trump is beefing. Now, if y'all didn't know, Snoop Doggy Frog made a video where he shot a gun at Trump. And then very swiftly, Trump or his wig responded by saying what an outrage it would be if somebody depicted a video of Obama's assassination. Like we never seen those before. But come on, Snoopy, you can't be out here preaching black unification and then being a representation of one of the greatest divisions amongst us, my nigga. You just can't build a level house on a crack foundation. You rappers kill me out here inciting all this racial violence, but then be sitting back in y'all mansions when it's time to hit the front lines. Go on and stir up the pot for more cops and racists to be out here attacking us while y'all sit back and walk around with 24-hour security. Now, I'm all for the First Amendment, but is you doing this for unity or publicity? I mean, just a few weeks ago, you was in a song talking about fuck a nigga, kill a nigga. Now you going against Trump, acting like you trying to build a nigga. I just don't get it. Just because you got a platform don't mean you always need to speak up, man. You need to pick an animal first. Funny thing is, though, Marilyn Manson made a video where he chopped the head off Trump, and I don't remember hearing none of this shit. Now, as soon as T.I. saw it, you know he had to chime in, but I get that. T.I. be out there marching and protesting and making videos and staying somewhat consistent with the uplifting of the community. He been doing his thing, so I can understand his clapback at Trump. Then out of nowhere, here come little Bow Bark, had to come put his paws off in the situation. Boy, if you on 106 and park that ass back with that show that left you, now please don't get it twisted. I'm definitely not trying to say that just because you got a platform, you have to be speaking into a political mic. But if you choose to do so, make sure that when you walk away from that podium, you do not exemplify the same actions of what you was trying to rectify. That's all. Oh, Tutti Frutti. You think you an entertainer now, huh? Maggie. Boy, you look like the nicest superhero in the world. Sit your not-so-mighty mouse looking ass down somewhere. Be the only damn superhero you know to catch him and suck they dick for punishment. Boy, this nigga don't know what he want to be. How you got on the AT&T call center button up with some fur prostitute wrist warmers? This nigga out here looking like a Bible salesman and a pimp for midgets. Police don't know when to kick in the damn door. Nigga walking to church looking like Crocodile Dundee and the preacher's wife. But y'all already know what his comeback will be. I don't wrestle crocodiles. Oh, yeah? What you wrestle, Tootie? Gators. And once I saw this baby picture, boy, I knew you been DHS line slow all your life. Now, we done been through this, Tootie. You 8 years old. You should know this by now. What's 1 + 1? Purple. Under the basement. Don't get up with a bell ring face ass. I bet your mama knew early something wasn't right with you. Tootie, stop picking through your alphabet too. Now, you need to eat. I'm looking for the D. Early suspect signs, face ass nigga. Always taking pics in this hijack Motel 6 robe acting like you rich. You look like you spray perfume in the air and shimmy into that. Hello, Sharpton. What you got popping today, Big Nasty?
I'm at the mall.
Hell yeah. What you up there looking at, Reptar?
Look, Make Your America.
No.
Where you see your at?
What is it? Make Your America.
Make Your America. No.
Like literally adding a word that's not even there. Just say it without the your.
Make Your America.
I'd be a damn chicken string. Just say the rest of it. Great again.
Great and green.
Great and green. You know what? Just get out the damn. Just go from
What's
I heard they got pretty long, man.
chicken string. Chicken out work.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, don't get over there. Don't touch me.
We're not from here. I just want to check out your mom. We're from Indianapolis.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Indianapolis.
Later. Bye-bye. See you later.
Nah, see, your grandma would want to say that you want to have a baby. No, I didn't hear that from you though, so I was just asking.
I don't care. I'm grown. I'm 31 years old. Yeah,
I'm 31 old.
You know, I just got your voicemail. Now, what was you saying?
why can I get fan fans from my fans? Like my real fans, you know?
You know, I've been looking for a fan, man. It's getting hot, you know, summertime coming. I need somebody to come check my... I already told you she had roaches, man. I went over there and someone rolling the blunt. You know, not like us, the smoke, you rolling down the hallway. Must have been trying to take back to the homies or something. Hey, somebody just trying to FaceTime me or something, man. Let me hit you back. Yo, what's good? What the fuck? What the fuck what, nigga? Who the fuck is you? I am. Who I am. Jesus. Damn. Who I am. Nigga, is that a flower on your chest?
Nigga, is that a flower on your chest?
Nigga, that is a flower. Why you hit me up though, man? Why you got all that damn baby oil on over there looking like an old ass Ethiopian chicken dick?
I got a concern right now that did it, you know. niggas. Oh, hell no. I know this nigga didn't just take 5 seconds to say nigga.